morning, brothers and sisters. First of all, we heard about the very tragic incident in my city of Edmonton, where we have a pedestrian fatality, and one of our members who is traumatized by that. So I just want to make sure that we please convey our thoughts and wishes and stand with that sister who got impacted by that tragedy, and also our sympathies and wishes with the family, the women who got injured and passed away because of that. As a former bus driver, when I was watching that video, I could relate to the challenges that the members face each and every day on the road. And Bob, thank you so much for that kind and generous introduction. I am here today to speak with you. I had a very busy schedule. I got to go back to Ottawa for a question and answer period in the Parliament, and I was trying to figure out whether I can make this or not. Then I got basically an ultimatum from my local 569 and from my president, my good friend Steve Bradshaw, and my good friend Gurdev Atwal and Jerry and the other board members. They're telling me that regardless what happens, you need to be at our convention. And I'm so honored to be part of it. For those of you who may not know, as Bob has mentioned, I was an ATU 569 board member for a number of years when I worked at DATS, and I was also proud to represent ATU 569 in my own community, as well as ATU 569 at the Canadian Labour Congress's Human Rights Committee as well. So it gives me really honor to be among you, as well as the welcome and the extension of invitation from President Hanley. President, thank you so much for that, as well as to the rest of the board members. I'm very familiar with the work that you do, and I'm honored to speak at this convention. As a union members, you ensure that our colleagues have a safe workplace and that their rights are protected. And as a fellow union member, I recognize the importance of the labor movement, and I can assure you that our government does as well. That is why we have committed to repealing previous government's Bill 377 that discriminated against unions, and also repealing Bill 525 that made it harder for federal employees to be part of the union. So standing in, please. Standing in front of you here today, I cannot help but reflect how ATU has touched my life. Bob mentioned I started with ATU as a DATS driver. I remember the first day that I met with Steve Bradshaw and Bill Chahal. That was 1994, when we were trying to organize because our working conditions were deplorable. So we made a pitch to Steve and Bill that, can you help us to be part of ATU 569? I still remember those days. Then I remember the 2 years long struggle that we had with City Hall for us to be recognized as City of Edmonton employees. The 2 years of struggle that we went through the courts to be recognized as members of ATU 569. I also remember my brother Gurdev Atwal and I and many of our members at that time who were organizing DATS drivers finishing our 12-day long shift, then coming home to maintain our vehicles that we owned, and having only one day off per week, but then going door to door to our members to convince them how critical it was for us to organize and be part of a union. And I remember when the votes came in for certification, 97% of our members voted in favor of being a member of ATU 569. So the work of ATU 569 has really impacted me and helped me where I am today. But I also want to reflect on how infrastructure has impacted my life. I often say that if I am the Minister of Infrastructure, I am that minister because of infrastructure. I moved to Canada when I was 18 years old from India. It was a simple, but though not easy life. My older brother had immigrated to Canada, and eventually he sponsored us to move to Edmonton. I remember getting off the plane in the evening of November 21st and thinking to myself that this is the coldest I will ever be. But mind you, I thought the same thing every day for the next number of months. It was all very shocking. A new country, a new climate, and a new language. And this obsession that people had with ice hockey. I just couldn't understand that. So what got me through those days were places like the public library, a welcoming place, but literally a warmer place where I could study, read, and learn a new language. What helped me were community centers where I could meet with people who were also newcomers, because I loved acting where I could perform in plays. What helped me settle were the buses, which took me to school, to work, to public parks, where I could play soccer. Each and every one of those things, the libraries where I learned, the community centers where I performed, the fields that I played on, the buses that took me to all these places, unlocked a world of opportunity for me. And what is remarkable about all of this is that my story is not unique. It is not special, but how absolutely universal it is. Ask anyone who has come to Canada from somewhere else or moved to an urban center from a rural community, and they will tell you that our public infrastructure helped them realize their full potential. In fact, later on in life, I became a City of Edmonton bus driver. My wife likes to say that my career has come a full circle. I went from paying for the buses to collecting fare for the buses, and now as a minister, I am back paying for the buses again. So what I saw on my routes were people, my neighbors, going to doctor's appointments, going to work, visiting family, going out for the evening to be entertained, not just fulfilling their economic potential, but realizing their essential human potential. And that is how that's how our government sees infrastructure. Friends, our government was elected on a promise to support the middle class and grow the economy. We believe that a strong economy starts with a strong middle class. And that is why we cut taxes for nearly 9 million Canadians like you and introduced the new Canada Child Benefit to help families like yours. This new program gives 9 out of 10 families more in child benefits to pay for the high cost of raising children, and it is tax-free. Our government is also making meaningful changes to Canada Pension Plan. The changes will boost how much each Canadian will get from their pension, from 1/4 of their earning now to fully 1/3. Simply put, there will be more money there for Canadians when they retire. And another way, please. And another way which we are supporting middle-class Canadians by creating jobs and long-term economic growth is through our investments in infrastructure. Infrastructure strengthens our economy for sure, but as you know, it builds communities too, make them more livable. Public transit, for example, not only does it save time, but it allows us to more fully enjoy the time we have. While some see infrastructure only as a means to move goods, I see infrastructure as a means to do good, to enable people to make a contribution, to live happier, healthier, more fulfilled lives, to make a difference for ourselves and for others. And that is priceless. For me, that is what Canada has always been about. People helping people. You here in this room, whether you're working on the front lines as a bus driver or as a transit security officer or behind the scenes as a maintenance worker, each of you have helped someone without thinking twice about it. You helped senior citizens, mothers with strollers or small children, people in wheelchairs, or with walkers to board your bus safely. Maybe it was just lowering a ramp to make it easier for them to board. Or maybe you got out of your seat and offered them a hand. Maybe your supervisor didn't appreciate that. But I'm sure those people you helped did appreciate. There are cleaners who work in maintenance garages, making sure that our buses and trains are ready to take people to work each morning. And there are maintenance workers in those same garages who make sure that our buses keep running. And while people complain when buses break down, few think about the countless hours that are put in by the mechanics when their buses run smoothly. So please, yeah. So on behalf of our government and on behalf of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you, for the work you do, keeping our fellow citizens safe and contributing to strong communities. Colleagues, our government has put forward a very ambitious agenda to build and rebuild Canadian communities for the 21st century, doubling our infrastructure investments over the next 10 years from $60 billion to $120 billion. When we were putting this plan together, we asked municipal partners, what do you need and how can we help? And in part, the answers to those questions became our plan. So we are immediately investing $12 billion in key priority areas, in social and affordable housing, clean water and wastewater, flood mitigation, and of course, in public transit infrastructure. We have now signed bilateral agreements with every province and territory, approving more than 700 projects across the entire country. And a majority of these projects focus on the repair and maintenance of the existing infrastructure assets, the needs our partners have identified. Across this country, we're buying light rail vehicles and refurbishing LRT stations. We're planning and designing new LRT lines and renewing our existing transit stations. Here in Toronto, we're renewing and fixing and replacing escalators. We're replacing subway pumps. We're upgrading fire ventilation. We're replacing skylights. And we're rehabilitating subway tracks. It is not always big and splashy new work. But as you know, it is necessary work. When buses and trains aren't working, it can be an inconvenience to some, but to others, it might mean that they can't get to work, to daycare, to the grocery store, to the library, or to school. So while we are making these short-term investments that will get our infrastructure in state of good repair, the large, long-term projects that will truly transform our cities will be part of our phase 2, the long-term plan. Generations ago, our nation made investments such as the National Railway and Trans-Canada Highway to improve the future prosperity and quality of life for every generation that followed. So the time to do that again is now. So in the next decade, our communities should have world-class public transit to reduce traffic and to make it easier for people to travel within their community and between communities. When it's easier for people to get to work on time, businesses to get their products to market, and families to take their kids to soccer practice, the whole community benefits and the whole country benefits. We need smart cities where traffic lights can adapt to congestion to speed up traffic flow, where smart sewers systems can detect leaks and minimize waste. Solar panels must top our rooftops, and our buildings must conserve more energy. As you know, we live in an increasingly trade-connected world. So we must invest in the next generation of ports and airports in our cities and towns from coast to coast to coast. That is the only way for Canada and Canadian businesses to compete globally. And we must build communities for everyone. A future that benefits only a select few is unacceptable and unsustainable. And friends, that's where you come in. You know how to make our transit system more reliable and safe. You know how to get people to their destinations safely and on time. And by doing so, you keep productivity up. You keep families connected, and you strengthen communities. With this vision, combined with your hard work, we will achieve our objectives. My best wishes for a successful convention. Thank you so much.